All right.
And I hope it picks up my voice. I'm kind of some of these I get that way.
Yeah, allergy season has been really tough.
Yeah.
Like I've woken up with like congestion in my head and ears, like very, very badly.
Mm-hmm.
Just random. No. It happens. But anyway,
So what's the date today? 25th.
Yep.
Sunday, July 25th. We're back at
Red Bank.
Bank Coffeehouse.
Yep.
And I have more than just
More than just coffee
ordinary
today.
Coffee with cream.
Yep.
What is this?
This is an
Iced
Americano.
Americano with French vanilla.
With French vanilla, yep.
So there.
Yep. I did my chai tea charger again without whipped cream this time. Just because it was really good last time.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. It's like drinking dessert. And still getting espresso.
So why not just make like caffeine ice cream?
I wish they did.
Yeah.
Actually,
but
the
lots
coffee
of-
ones kind of are.
Yeah. It's like if you want coffee, drink coffee. If you want dessert, get dessert.
Yeah.
Key lime
But
pie.
why when you can have it all in one? And I don't have to
No.
compromise anything.
Yeah, but they don't make you key lime.
Bummer. I know there's a syrup out there for key lime.
I'm sure
It
there is.
exists.
Okay.
So, all right. So, what you been reading?
I have. I'm going to be hard to hear. I have finished the. Actually, you got it somewhere down there. I'll pass it on to you. The
Yes.
Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
I love the cover. It's very
Yeah.
striking.
Yeah, when we first, I did this as a buddy read with Samantha. When we first got it, I asked the question: is that cover symbolic of what goes on in the
Yeah.
story? And a little ways through it, there was something that did have to do with actual peach trees, and I said, "Oh, bummer, they didn't go where I thought they would." But then later on,
Yeah.
it gets there.
Alrighty. Figured. I figured.
It's a disturbing book.
I love disturbing.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorites.
it's something. Reading the title, you would think it's just a comedy, but it kind of starts out lighthearted, but it
Yeah.
gets
Darker
pretty
and darker
intense.
and
It gets
darker.
very dark and very intense.
I feel like American Psycho does the same thing. Where it kind
Yeah.
of just starts off with absurd humor and then just gets weirder from there.
Mhm. And it has some tough themes. You know,
Mhm.
sensitive people probably shouldn't really
Yeah.
read it.
Trigger warnings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, for me, dealing with parents going into nursing homes,
Yeah.
the old woman eating a
Mhm.
raccoon in the alley was freaking me out.
Yeah.
And then later on, you know, the story really does get into themes of people who are on the outside
Mhm.
and are having problems
Yeah.
and are trying to talk about it, but nobody's listening to them.
Mhm.
So if it's something that you've gone through,
Yeah, like gaslighting.
issues of mental illness, gaslighting, stuff like that, if it's stuff that you've gone through, that might be a trigger warning there, because it gets pretty intense with that theme.
Mhm.
And so I can see how the whole vampire thing really is a metaphor for certain situations in real life that
Yeah.
are unfortunate.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
in that way, it does become a very disturbing book dealing with issues of mental illness and such. But powerful in the way it deals with it.
Yeah.
It's,
As a person who deals with mental illness, I kind of like observing that because one, it doesn't make me feel so alone when people do stupid things like that to me. Like, it makes me recognize that this is an ongoing issue, and it makes me, because I'm the stubborn type, it makes me want to do more about it. Like, to be more open about my mental illness and to be like, you know what, if other people are struggling to talk about it, I'm just gonna shamelessly make that space for people. So I kind of like that those kind of themes come up in books a lot because it doesn't. I feel like it motivates me a lot.
yeah.
So.
But that is an issue where, you know, sometimes people lie, but because of who they are, other people believe them and not you. And you're there trying to get through it. People just think you're crazy, and you're not.
Yeah.
You really are dealing with something that somebody needs to be on your side, and you just feel like the whole world's against you. And,
Yeah.
And you know, it's not a good place to be in. And that's really what the whole book is all about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
I'm excited.
it's brilliant. Yeah, so we'll do a whole video review.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be moving on to. So that's on my pile of books to do. What else have you been up to and reading?
The other one I haven't finished yet is Project Hail Mary. I'm not quite halfway through.
Okay.
So I don't know where it's going, so
Yeah.
I can't spoil it yet.
Yeah. No spoilers just yet.
It's reminding me very much of books like The Molten God's Eye by Larry Niven, or Reading World by Larry Niven, where you have these people who are going elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it turns out to be one person because his crewmates die in suspended animation.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's the only one that wakes up.
Yeah.
But he goes to the star and he meets aliens. So there's first contact, and there's a lot of science to it, but the science, Andy Weir deals with the science in a way that I think is very understandable for people. He keeps the science fairly simple, Newtonian mechanics and basic kinds of things like relativity equals MC squared that people are familiar with. So you don't have to be a scientist to read this, but he does get scientific, which I love.
Mm-hmm. I do like that. I like when the science is plausible and explainable and accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Because that teaches me something versus just, though I do also very much appreciate Hitchhiker's Guide's way of explaining sciences, because you lean so much on plausible deniability that it's also hilarious and like, yeah, I guess that works.
Yeah.
So I kind of like both. I'm one extreme or the other.
Well, this, like pretty much every science fiction book, starts with real science, but goes beyond that into the author's imagination of science based on stuff that we do know, extrapolating to something far beyond what we know.
Yeah.
So, 10 years from now, the science is absolute garbage, but right now it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of am enjoying that in one of the books I'm reading right now, where it's like, this is really old analog technology kind of stuff, but it's still really fun. It's like cassette punk, almost. Like, I don't know, really enjoy it a lot.
I said to Samantha last night that, this book with all its science, it's better than sex.
Yeah.
She thinks of me now.
Hey, I mean, you're into what you're into.
She's already telling me to watch Big Bang Theory.
Don't. It's a lot of dedication for not a lot of benefit, in my opinion. I enjoyed it, like for sit down, mindless, don't have to think too hard kind of thing, and just watching the absurdity. But after a while, I just kind of got burned out on it. I find like I can't dedicate myself to a really long series. Like I could never go for Grey's Anatomy. I would just die because that's too much dedication. And Naruto, the anime, so
but
much.
Doctor Who is different.
Doctor Who is different because it switches it up enough that you're not really getting the same thing twice. I like that, and you can kind of pick up where you left. Pick it up anywhere, and it's still enjoyable, even if it's got a storyline going.
Yeah,
I feel like I could pick it up anywhere, and it still feels pretty fun. I do like Doctor Who for that reason. But
that show, it's funny, but I don't like the characterizations. They come across as idiots and buffoons, and they're not. And it's the typical characterization. It's too easy to just point fingers and say ha 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 at people that are different from you, and I'm uncomfortable with that. But let's face it, every sitcom does that.
That is a very common trope for sitcoms.
Let's just treat everybody like they're an idiot.
Especially the male figures if they're a father. I hate that. Where it's the wife always knows and it's just rolling her eyes and it's the straight man, and the husband is the one who has to pick up all, who has to take all the flack for things. I hate that.
And right in reality, a lot of husbands end up fixing everything that the wife doesn't
know how to do or doesn't want to do.
Doesn't know
you
how
know?
to do or creates problems, trying to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of the time too, there's a lot more partnership going on than sitcoms, of course,
Yeah,
put out there.
they simplify
Yeah.
life in order to make it a joke,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate.
It is.
So the only other thing I read, well, besides Pickman's Model, I
Yeah.
reread that because we're going to do a video on that. So I'm prepared for that. I also read Mr. Skelmer's Dale in Fairyland.
Okay.
It's a short story by H.G. Wells. And it's about a guy who falls asleep on a hill and wakes up in fairyland.
Oh.
And then he comes back to reality and he hates it. He wants to go back.
Yes.
But he can't find his way back again. Of course, that's the traditional fairy story.
Yeah.
Wells was using that at the time, just like in The Sea Lady, he was making a point about you shouldn't let your fantasies take you away from your reality too much. He's saying the same thing there, that following your fantasies, you're just not going to like reality
It's
ever.
really funny because H.P. Lovecraft, I just finished reading the short story The Silver Key,
Okay.
which is the opposite. Reality is boring. Go find a way back to dreamland.
Yeah. See, and that's what I go for.
I like that. I liked it. It's so funny because I just read the opposite story, essentially. I'm getting through the yellow wallpaper and other stories. So this is actually a really frustrating collection because a lot of it is just miscommunications between men and women and making really stupid drama. So I'm having a hard time with that, but it does speak volumes to how relationships are often failures.
Yeah.
But of course, Charlotte Perkins Gilman was a feminist for her time, and that was a huge issue, was all these social constructs where it actually almost set people up to fail a lot, because it's like, oh, women should be like this, 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 and this, and men should be like this, this, and this, and this. And it's like ships in the night.
Yeah, it's those expectations.
Yeah, and they're absurd and opposite. So it was just kind of like the issues of double standards. So it is a little frustrating to read because you're just like, this would have been, if people had developed better communication and, these social constructs weren't such an issue in debutante society, then yes, relationships would have been far easier to conduct outside of arranged marriages. So I'm getting through that.
Cool.
I started A for Andromeda. I'm really enjoying this so far. I got this in my vintage book haul.
No, I haven't read that one. I'm thinking Fred Hoyle was like Carl Sagan of his day, and I'm thinking there might be similarities between this and Contact.
There probably is. This is actually based off of I guess there's a BBC serial called A for Andromeda that this was based off, or vice versa, something like that.
I think the serial was based on
Yeah. So it was, so I'm reading through that, and I figured, because it's such a short read, I mean, I'm almost halfway through it already, and I just started last night. So, I mean, and it's so far very interesting. There's a lot of drama, a lot of espionage, some, the issues of communism are being brought up as part of the drama, too, especially during that era. That was, Cold War and things like that. So I thought that was an interesting thing to add to it. Not only are we having first contact, but we're having issues with the scientists who have communist affiliations. This is based mostly in Europe. And of course, now they're just getting into getting the Secretary of Defense involved and getting the Army involved and then trying to build a supercomputer. It's very analog, cassette punk kind of feeling. I really like that. Kind of has like a if 2001 was on Earth instead of in space kind of vibe.
Okay.
Very similar writing style. And of course, the science is spot on because scientists wrote it. Yeah.
He was the royal astronomer back for a long time, till I forget exactly when he died, but I think the 1980s. But this would have been written in the 50s or 60s. And he was the British royal astronomer. So his full-time job was leading the...
According to this, he has recently engaged on a computer program for recalculating the age of stars. So this is even before he passed that this version came out.
So this is like Carl Sagan or Stephen Hawking writing a science fiction book.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I'm enjoying it. There's a lot of drama, of course. 1950s sexism, but what can you do?
Well, if you're gonna read stuff from that time, you're gonna run into that.
Yeah. That was normal.
People didn't see the problem back then.
Yeah.
Most people. Some people did, but they weren't being listened to. So
Yeah. So it's still a really enjoyable book though. I'm into chapter 4 or 5 now, and it's going really well. And all the chapter titles start with the letter A, all the way to the last chapter is Annihilation. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. I started book club up with the ladies again now that things with COVID have kind of started to settle down a bit. We're still being cautious and stuff, but we started it up again, and we're going to try and do Zoom if things go south again. But we started with The Language of Flowers by Vanessa Diffenbaugh. I don't know how to say her last name, but it's very outside my usual stuff. I picked this copy up at a thrift store. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. And then, of course, I'm still working my way through. This is the Joan of Arc book I'm reading currently.
Yeah.
Like I said last time, this has been really good at very simply explaining the political situation that was happening in France at this time that was causing all of these wars to happen, which had never been very well explained to me in the past, even in history books. I felt like I needed it dumbed down a little bit more for me to understand it, because there is a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people were murdered and assassinated. A lot of people were upset. There's several different political parties, and England is still trying to have control over France at this time. So you kind of got 3 kings going on, or 3 people claiming to be king right now, and just kind of that interchange. So I felt like this was a really good explanation of what's happening, and then of course a really good explanation of the history of Joan herself and how she got involved and prophecies she had and things like that, and how her fall came about essentially. So it's really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's of course taken me a bit to kind of truck through it, but I'm halfway through now. So I feel very...
Bookmarks.
What?
So you need bookmarks.
I know. I keep using the jacket as a bookmark just because I have bookmarks, and then my cat absconds with them while I'm reading, and I don't notice. And then next thing I know, they're torn up on the floor, and I'm like, well, now I'm out of a bookmark. And I have to go digging for another bookmark under the couch, because that's where he hides the ones he doesn't take. So
you need to put something like jalapeno on the edges.
I know, yeah, something there. He's just like, no, never. It's hard. Like, my cats just love paper. Like, I have to hide my bills if I put them on top of the fridge under the cereal boxes so that my fur babies don't chew up my bills.
Yeah.
We have to put everything in the mailbox right away, or they'll abscond with it. So, rain or shine, it's in the mailbox. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm reading, and then of course I'm going to start Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Yeah.
So those are the things I'm focusing on right now. I have some family stuff coming up, so I don't know how much more reading I'll get done until the next time we hang out, but I'm certainly going to try. I got a ton of stuff knocked out yesterday. I am down to 10% left of the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft, so I've got only a few more short stories to get through that. I'm finding with H.P. Lovecraft, I'm enjoying anything that takes place in Dreamland a lot more than just the straight Cthulhu mythos, because I feel like in Dreamland it all comes together. Like, all the mythos that he has built and created kind of come together in this Dreamland, including Cthulhu, including the ghouls and stuff that he comes up with. It's just really interesting, and I really like the world building of Dreamland, and the characters you meet, and the Cats of Ulthar are part of it, and just all these creatures he makes up as other races or other beings that are sentient in there. I'm really enjoying that a lot. But I mean, it's all really good. It's hard to pick a favorite story, because Joe was asking me last night, what's your favorite H.P. Lovecraft story so far? And I'm like, oh,
they're all
stupid question. Yeah, they run together. We meet characters a lot. I know we're going to review Pickman's Model, but there's an entire story where Pickman's back in Dreamland, where you meet him again.
Okay.
And so it's because in the story he disappears.
Yeah.
And so now you find out where he went. And it's just really interesting because they do all kind of flow together and like create an entire world mythos, including like the intercosmos and things like that, like the elder gods and the earth gods and like all this stuff just comes together. So I think that's why I really like those dream ones more, because it's the full mythos. It's not just the bits and pieces anymore. They're all there.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that a lot.
Hmm.
But yeah.
And he said, well,
Yeah, I don't think I could pick a favorite Lovecraft. Well, there's one, but all the rest of them, they're so similar. That,
Yeah.
and
They weave together.
he, to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't really have a variation in quality through, but they're all pretty much at the same level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There are some that I felt like Azathoth was far shorter than I expected. It was far shorter than I expected, because you hear of Azathoth as like a big part of the mythos. It's a 5-page story.
yeah.
And it's just description.
Mhm.
It's not really anything else. There's no action, nothing. So I was a little disappointed in that, just because it feels like it should be a bigger part, because people talk about it like it's a bigger part and it's not. It's 5 pages, but it's still really good. I'm enjoying it a lot.
You gotta think a lot of his other stories, you spend 90% of the story getting to what the story is really about, and then
Yeah,
everything's
it's
really
character
cool.
building, and then all of it happens at the end of the story.
Yeah. So,
That's still really good. Like, I really enjoy H.P. Lovecraft. I had read a lot of his work, mostly in the Cthulhu mythos aspect, not the rest of the mythos.
yeah.
So it's really nice to have like a full picture now and see like Dreamland is where it all comes together. I really enjoy that. I think that was really well done on his part. And they're all put, of course, in chronological order in this work, so it's when they were released, so you're getting things
Yeah.
in order too, because he wrote chronologically for the most part.
Okay.
Like a lot of things, like some things are like hindsight, but he writes it as a hindsight story.
Mhm.
I really like that. And there's a couple too that he wrote from like a one-sided monologue conversation, which was really fun. I kind of liked those too, where it's just a person talking at someone while they're at
Pittman's
combat.
model was-
Yeah. There's a couple more like that. That's really interesting. I really like those. But yeah, it's been good.
My favorite was The Outsider.
The Outsider.
I want to do a cold video on that sometime.
Yeah.
It's,
We'll have
that's
to
a
do
cool
that one.
story.
Yeah, I just finished The Rats in the Wall.
I've been thinking about Mom's
And that
problem.
was-
We get her as well as-
That was another kind of like grotesque, disturbing one, but I was actually kind of disappointed in it because I heard that that's a really good one of his. It was okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He expected from the title just to be about rats. And
Yeah,
it's
there's a
lot
little
bigger.
bit, yeah, there's a lot more, but still it's kind of like, oh, I saw that coming a little bit. But you had to,
Yeah.
from the mythos of like the family history and things like that. So I'm really enjoying it because it does all weave together so well. He was so intentional about making sure everything connected.
Yeah.
And he did it very well without making huge stretches or anything like that. It was all very reasonably done. So I really like that about it a lot.
Okay.
Almost done.
So probably before we do another of these, we'll be starting Akatar.
Yep.
Buddy reading Samantha.
Yes.
3-way. She's been pushing me for this since I first met her
Yeah.
last March. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We're going to produce a video of whether or not we think it's
If it's any good
any
enough.
bit worthwhile.
Yeah.
And the prediction is that I'll hate it.
I've never read it. I don't even know. So we'll
Okay.
see.
I don't know.
Okay, do you wanna go through the
What
dairy
people are
ones?
telling me about it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking you might like it. I don't think you're going to think it's a classic or anything.
Yeah.
No?
It's not gonna blow me away, but okay. We'll see.
But from what I'm reading about it, it's probably a little too much aimed at teenage girls for me.
Do the vampires sparkle?
We got in a conversation about that. Samantha
I don't
was
want
saying,
any sparkly vampires in my.
yeah, but I actually thought that was cool about Twilight. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw the movie.
Yeah. I haven't read the book either, so
I thought it was cool to turn that whole vampire thing of the sunlight around
Yeah.
and make it more positive.
Yeah.
Because I felt like Twilight was trying to say that you know, in the real world, the outsider, quiet, kind of moody types can be good people.
I just read one of Lovecraft's kind of had a vampiric sort of story, just one that was more blatantly towards vampiric than anything else. And I really loved the way he did it.
It's different.
It was so original. Like it didn't feel like typical vampire stuff that you hear with the tropes and the garlic and all that crap. It was very he made sure the vampiric being was very alien-esque. I really enjoyed that a lot. So I think I could get into more vampire stuff if we go with the tropes a little.
But the whole vampire myth comes from the warning
Yeah.
against women not to get involved with guys.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
creeps.
that-
Yeah.
That they're going to, well, you know, it's basically saying you shouldn't have sex outside of marriage. Is what the whole thing is really about, to try and teach people to say, you
Patriarchy.
paint this guy as this
Yeah,
monster
sleazy.
going
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
you know, taking your, sucking the life out of you.
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. Now it's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Fetish. Anyway. So yeah, that's all I got to talk about. How about you?
That's it. That's all I read.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.